Hey guys, it's Greaseball here. I just kind of wanted to talk about the deck of Nightmare Medallion and kind of where it's at right now before I get into some gameplay. So I came up with this deck with Adam, and so it is kind of my baby in a way. Adam tends to like brewing a lot more, and I tend to like optimizing established lists a bit more. And so while we came up with it together, Adam's been brewing like I don't know how many more decks he's brewed, and I've just iterated on this list a ton, and I'm kind of getting to a point where I'm like I'm pretty happy with most of the 75, and there's always going to be adaptations and stuff, but I'm pretty happy with this list as is, and I just kind of wanted to talk about it and how like you should like how I'm currently like thinking about this list. So first off, you get to play Necropotence and Dark Ritual, which are, in my opinion, I think they're the two best cards, the two strongest cards in the Timeless format, right? And you also get access to, you also get to play all these dorks that sack for mana and pair really well with Tower to give you a turn of, like a ton of turn two Necros, which is Necro, basically like, if you think about Necro, it kind of, it's the best on turn one, and then it kind of like, it has this like downward, you know, like kind of like a, almost like a it just kind of has like this like it gets substantially worse each turn the later it's played on each turn, because you know you might be taking more damage, or you know it's just you have a lot more selection earlier on, and there's less board pressure in general, uh and so we get to play like all this fast mana, and then we're not even uh we have a combo associated with this. So like if you have a medallion in play, Nightmare is only going to cost 1 mana, and you can sack these two infinitely. While you also while you're getting doing this, you get infinite scries if one of them is a freebooter, and then if you have an apprentice in play, you're actually dealing them one damage each time you do this infinitely, and so you can just combo them out and kill them. And this kills through ring because it's in Leyline of Sanctity, because it loses life, right? So it's a very it's a powerful enough combo to like where you can just push through in stuff and you're not like randomly hosed by like a ley line. And it actually because you're playing Nightmare, you can actually afford to, you're not worried about protecting these pieces because you can get them back at any time once you have the mana for Nightmare. So really the only like, you know, pieces you must protect in this combo, or like that are, you kind of like, when they lose it, you lose them, it like is, they're not as easily like immediately replaced. There's just these two, and it's an enchantment and an artifact, right? So those are a bit protected just by their card types, right? And so, and while it's a 5-card combo, you're seeing a lot of cards with Necro, or you have the option to see a lot of cards with Necro, right? So you basically you get a lot more turn 2 Necros off these dorks, and then also our dorks just happen to combo out and kill the opponent when the time's appropriate to like start comboing out, right? So because of that, because we have two very powerful cards, and we get ways to play the powerful Necro even more consistently, and the cards happen to have a combo kill associated with them while playing like good quality cards. I think Medallion's a bit not as good, but we really maximize it in this deck. We have a deck. Okay, so generally this you have this combo. I think of it more, this is a Necro deck first and foremost. You're not going to see this 5-card combo naturally. A lot of the time you might, but like you kind of need to see a good amount of cards with Necro, but you're not like forced to combo them out every single time. Like you don't have to go all in on Necro turn 2, turn 3, because you just have this like naturally like built-in good fair game plan, right? Of like, oh, I can Nightmare, you know, I can, you know, you have Bowmasters too, right? That like fits really well into this deck, and you can just like loop Nightmares and stuff, and like you can just buy a ton of time, and you know you have this like very reasonable fair game plan. Like you can, while you're drawing cards off Necro, you can just like march back, get up some life, and draw some more cards with Necro. You're not so you have like, you can be very linear against like in matchups where it really matters, but like you end up like really getting to kind of just control the pace of the game with access to Necro. You know, if you need to draw 19 cards off Necro and because your opponent's about to win next turn with like show and tell, you can do that, right? And that's fine. But like if you're against energy or something that like, you know, they don't have a lot of reach, you know, they play like a Johnny and you know, maybe they play Bolt and they play Flage. You can actually just like draw 4 or 5 cards off Necro and like and really just kind of be a more controlling role, and then you just grind them out with Necro, and then you eventually are going to naturally just like have this combo in your hand that you could like, okay, you've grinded them out, and now you just have the combo in hand, or you're 1 card off the combo and you can just tutor for it, right? And so like with like access to all these like fast Necros, you end up like you end up seeing a lot more cards in your deck, and 2, you end up having a lot more agency over the pace, like over the games, right? Like you're not, if you're energy, right, game 1 and you're playing against show and tell is just going to have their turn 3 a lot of the time, and there's not a lot you can do about it, right? But like if you have a Necro, you're playing against show and tell, right? And you can just say, oh, okay, we're going fast. I'm gonna Necro fast. I'm gonna very aggressively. Show and tell doesn't have reach. We're gonna be very aggressive with this, right? Whereas like against energy, you can slow down the pace of the game and really just like, oh, I can just kind of outlast energy for a long enough time, and I'm just gonna have this kind of and I don't have to worry about killing them anytime soon, because I know I just have this at the very end of the game. I'm just gonna have this combo like naturally like built into my deck, and I'm gonna see all the cards at some, or most of the cards, enough of the cards to the point where I'm gonna have my combo in hand, right? And so because of that, you kind of you end up like your games are very different, right? Like you're not always just like comboing people out and going all in, and you know, and like you get to be controlling sometimes, and you get to, oh, you know, sometimes against like blue black, you end up they're so worried about your Necro that they're like holding up mana drains, and you just like you're gonna beat them down with like Bowmasters and like Apprentice Life Loss and stuff like that. And so you end up just like your games are all very like matchup dependent, and it's not like them adapting to you. It's more you kind of get to adapt to your matchup in the way that it's like best for the deck, right? Which is like I think is really cool and really unique versus like something like show and tell where it just like you're always trying to combo, you're always trying to go off, and you're always building to that. That's the best thing you can be doing, right? So I think just like having access to these like this like fair game plan of like, you know, like Nightmare, Apprentice, Bowmaster stuff is like really interesting. You also like get to loop Griefs with off of Nightmares when it's good, because like all your creatures are 2 and 1 drop. So like your second Nightmare, you're gonna have access to Griefs. So you have access to a lot of agency. You also get to play like 5 tutors, which will like cost 1 mana when Medallion's down, and they're even good as 2 mana tutors a lot of the time. And so like you know, access to 5 tutors. You can see a ton of cards with Necro. You end up seeing a lot of your deck where like when you need to, and it's just really neat. And it's the only deck in the format that feels like this. And yeah, and so I'm really excited about this deck. I think you know, with how consistent and like how many like how much optionality you have in this deck, I think it's very tricky to play. And so I'm hoping like with some uploads and stuff like that, I can kind of get into, you know, how I'm currently thinking about the deck, and then people can either like learn from that or challenge how I'm learning about the deck, and then we can, you know, kind of discuss and go through lines and stuff like that. Like I think that'd be really cool. You know, because like it is like if you think about it, at the like say you have 20 life at the end of every turn with Necro, you have the option between drawing 0 cards and 19 cards, right? And so that's a lot of options, you know, number one. And then like you also have 5 tutors, right? Which you're looking at every card in your deck. You know, sometimes you might want to tutor for like a Phyrexian Tower because it's really good that you missed a land drop, and it's really good then. Or like sometimes you tutor for your combo pieces. Sometimes you tutor for Necro, because like there's just a lot of options in this deck versus, you know, just like having this AB, you know, versus like something like, again, show and tell. You always just like are digging to show and tell and digging to like show and tell payoffs. Versus like this, I think just the fact that your games are looking very different, and like you're seeing so many cards, I think it feels like you have a lot of agency in games, and you're not it's not repetitive at all, which is really cool. So yeah, this is kind of like the deck, and you know, I think it's really interesting, and I hope, you know, more people get into it. It's also not even that expensive. Like a lot of these are like, you know, generally like craftable rares that you want anyways. You know, but so yeah, I hope people are interested in the deck, and I hope to like do some more uploads and really like get into this. Yeah. This is a great opening hand. You have turn one Necro about 10% of the time per mulligan you see. And so we're gonna get to do that with 7 cards. And we're gonna have access to tower. And we're gonna get to get a gas into play. Getting to interact with Grief is probably the least important thing about this hand, but it's a nice benefit. I like exiling Nightmare here because we're gonna play out our other basically everything besides Nightmare or Apprentice, and I think Nightmare is just more important later in the game, anyways. Than Apprentice is going to be on like a turn 2 if we have to pick. Now I see that they're Mardu energy. I'm going to take the Ajani here because Ajani makes your Necros a lot worse because it threatens to, at any given time, it threatens to flip and deal a lot of reach damage, which is so even like if they don't have a way, even if they don't have a way to flip it, you end up drawing 3 to 5 less cards off your Necro per game because you're just playing around what their nut draws with Ajani flips look like. And so by getting it out of their hand, I can be a lot more aggressive with my Necro in the game. And this setup is really, really good for turn 1. With the turn 1 Necro, having the tower in play and gas in play, it kind of it would give us a turn 2 goldfish if we had access to one more positive mana source, be it like a treasure or a medallion in hand. You could justifiably go for a turn 2 and just like hope to dodge whatever burn they have. I wouldn't recommend it against Mardu because they have random reach and stuff, but I think you could go for a turn 2 against them if you really wanted, if you had one more mana source. Given that that's not the case, we're not going to go for the turn 2. I don't think this discard is very interesting. We're just discarding basically our duplicates of stuff. We're not really in double tower territory. I think that's usually, it's a lot more interesting on turn 3 or turn 4. But we're just going to develop. We drew 2 rituals, so we're basically good on mana for the rest of our, like, for comboing for the rest of the game, pretty much. And I'm going to wait until they declare Necro a target with Prison, because if I draw down like 1 or something silly, they can actually just get my Dork, and then I'm Necro locked for the rest of the game anyways. So there's no reason to take the Necro at that point. So make them choose Necro as a target and then draw in response is what I'll be doing. And we're in a very, our setup wasn't good enough to go for a turn 2, but we're very, very, very well set up for a turn 3 with the amount of rituals and stuff we have. And because we're drawing 7 cards off Necro, I'm actually okay with burning some rituals here, because we're going to end up having to discard the hand size anyways off of our Necro. So I can go ahead and play my Apprentice and play my Nightmare, and also leave up Phyrexian Tower. So basically, I'm saving 2 mana on the on my combo turn by playing out Apprentice and Nightmare. They're each worth 1 mana, and I get to leave up Tower to protect my Ghast and my Apprentice against the Legion end that I know they have in hand. So yeah, we used 2 rituals. Yeah, we left a mana floating, but we got 4 cards out of our hand. We got 2 mana down for our combo next turn. And we're going to get a lot more selection off of our Necro now because we opened up 4 slots in our hand, right? And we do draw into the combo, which is really nice. But we had so many good outs here with the amount of mana we had. Like DI was really good. Like we're pretty close to guaranteed to go off next turn with the amount of cards we're seeing and the amount of our combo that we already had banked. We're basically at plus 6 mana with the Ghast and the Tower. Like 2 lands plus Tower plus Dork plus Apprentice plus Nightmare is basically plus 6, is at 6 mana, and we generally only need 4 to go off. And so they do hit the Ajani off the Raptor, which is funny, but I still do think it's the correct play to make them have to like luck out and see the Ajani versus letting them just have the Ajani turn 2 on its own. And I'm gonna go ahead and just get my Bowmasters down. This is less to kill the Raptor and more to just get the treasure in play. Yeah. And just set up our combo turn. And you're gonna see that actually because we're basically like 2 mana over what we really needed for comboing. We're actually gonna be quite a bit over. We're actually gonna have quite an excess of mana when we're going off, and it just kind of speaks to how powerful our turn 1 was, and like how powerful our setup was going in. And we're not gonna play around surgical game 1. So as for sideboarding versus energy, I really like my current sideboard plan for it, which is taking out Griefs because their cards aren't as impactful, and bringing in the anti-hate, which is your mites in Boseiju, and then bringing in the extra meat hook. And then we're also going to trim Nightmare and a Medallion. These are our combo pieces that are worse in multiples. And especially in this matchup, your Nightmares aren't even getting countered a lot of the time. They're generally messing with your graveyard, which makes the Nightmares bad, right? So you're not even, you usually keep all your they don't interact with Nightmare at instant speed well. So you end up keeping your Nightmares and then kind of fighting to protect your graveyard more so. So you actually don't need as many Nightmares, and you could justifiably go to, if Nightmare was a worse card, you could go to 2 and stay at 4 Medallion, but I like trimming 1 of each in this matchup because you kind of want to maximize your combos, your combinations of cards to the combo for Necro. Like you still want to maintain those like good numbers for that. And I do think this is a good matchup for the Nightmare Medallion side of things because they have trouble playing through Meat Hook Massacre, and you're just faster than them combo wise. But you end up, you're basically going to want to play a bit slower post board because you don't want to go all in on a Necro, telegraph that you're going all in on the combo, Necro lock yourself, and then they have some, like, they have a hearse or like a Juggernaut Peddler that you didn't expect, and you're just kind of Necro locked and you're missing one combo piece, and then you just kind of kill yourself, right? So how this matchup plays is you end up just grinding them out with Necro, which is really easy to do, right? Necro's an insane value card. And then you kind of see what hate they've drawn in their opening 10, 15 cards, and you play through that, and then you can, and then you have enough tutors to kind of match what they're doing, and 2-for-1 yourself once or twice, and eventually just overwhelm them with your card advantage from Necro and combo them off just to close out the game. And I don't mind keeping one-landers with the Scry Idiot, because you're actually about like 80-ish% to hit second land with 2 looks on the draw, with 2 looks and a Scry on the draw, and all your rituals are also good. So it's really kind of fine to keep these. It's a bit worse if it's the gas. But I really, on the draw, I don't mind keeping one-landers with the Scry Idiot. No, they do, like, they end up like exiling it, but it's fine. And we do get a bit lucky here with third land, but like, again, rituals were also good. We have like a decent amount of outs to this kind of thing, that it's not, even if we were like a turn behind, I think we're still in a, like, say we miss a land drop and we have to play out like an apprentice or something, or DI for something, or just DI for land. It's really okay. And we're on the draw. We're already up a game. I think we can kind of be a bit more aggressive in these spots. Because also our upside is we kind of have the world now. But interestingly, so we only have 3 lands in play and no extra mana being built towards our combo. So we're actually not even in a good spot to go off on turn 4. Which is kind of neat compared to last game where we could go off on turn 3, like, and we had more than enough mana to go off on turn 3, whereas here we don't even have enough mana to go off on turn 4. And again, you don't want to really push it in this matchup. Johnny's annoying, but we don't have a Necro in play anyway, so it's not that bad. Now, with 2 cards in hand, I think the Ajani's a lot less threatening, because if you think about it, they need a red permanent and a way to get rid of their Ajani token. So unless they have exactly that in hand, I'm not too worried about... I'm not too worried. Like, I think just Ajani is a lot less threatening because they have to have exactly 2 cards, or one of them and then top deck the other the next turn. So I'm actually gonna target the Guided Souls here. I'm gonna D-high for March just to buy me some time, and I'm gonna hit the Guided Souls 1 because it's guaranteed getting through for 3 every turn, and that's basically represents 3 cards with a Necro in play, and 2 because they're at 1 energy with their Static Prison. So if I don't get that Guided Souls now, the Static Prison is just staying up for the rest of the game. Whereas if I kill the Guided Souls, it does put some pressure on them to try and generate energy next turn to save the Static Prison. And if they play out the rest of their hand next turn, I have I have perfect information, right? And then I know what to tutor for to attack the rest of their board, and either, you know, be it a meat hook or a might, but I have perfect information, and they've fully committed their board to keep the Static Prison in play. And that's what you want. You want them to just overcommit. You want them to show everything that they have in their hand and what kind of hate they're packing, so that you can safely tutor for the appropriate response and then outgrind them again. Because like we have, you know, if they show like that they have a hearse next turn, it's so good for us, right? Because then we can protect our nightmare, we can intent, and then we can intent for might, and then we have our nightmare to just start really just crushing them with our nightmares, right? And we are going to have access to the combo too if they fully tap out. So here we're never blocking, because that basically saves them having a way to get rid of their token, right? And they play DI, which actually gets both issues with 1 card. Probably DI and Bombardment are the 2 ways that they could have done that. So it's really good for them to have it there. Yeah, I mean, it's not a card I would expect, but it looks pretty good here with the Ajani. But even with this spot, with them flipping Ajani, they had to play a 2-mana card, which either, you know, DI or Bombardment, and then they're gonna have to probably tap out or commit more mana to the board, which it's still in our favor, I believe. Okay, and they do play Raptor, and based on their sequencing, right, because Raptor hits a random card, and they tutored earlier in the turn, it makes me think that they tutored for Raptor, because if they had the Raptor in hand, they would play it before they hit the random card, see what they had, and then tutor to kind of find a appropriate supporting card. And because they didn't, it makes me think that they tutored for the Raptor, so they did not tutor for like a surgical or something. And so we have access to the combo right now, with being able to tutor for another dork. And so we're going to lead with that. You could, yeah. You could have sequenced out Apprentice and Tower here first, but this is fine. I think you could also arguably sack Bowmasters here first, just in case they surgical. Like, basically, if they have surgical here, they're going to be able to snipe our dork, and but then we'll have access to Nightmare, and we'll be able to basically just like spam Bowmaster triggers and kill their board and kill the Ajani. Now I am going to play around Swords to Plowshares here, because I have an excess of mana, right? And so I'm going to just, you know, lead out with Tower before I play any of my combo pieces, and then I'm going to basically play out my combo. And if they interrupt it with Surgical, I'll basically just pivot. I'll sack Bowmasters to Tower, and then I'll start killing their Ajani. And then if they have And then if they have Swords of Plowshares, I just sack whatever they're targeting in response, and then I'll have enough mana to and enough resources to just start nightmaring back the card that I sacked the tower and continue my combo through the Swords of Plowshares. And so I do think it's important that you know, once you're above the 4 mana to your combo like threshold for this deck, that you can kind of start thinking about ways that you basically start freeing up options to play around. You start freeing up options to play around random hate and interaction. And so here we're able to play around the Swords of Plowshares, which is something that they very much have in their range. And you can see here is that we started our turn off with 4 lands and a Medallion, which is worth about 3 mana, and we're ending our combo with an excess of 3 mana between the tower and the Nightmare, which is kind of neat. But yeah, so this was a match with energy that I think kind of shows some kind of standard play patterns and how to kind of think about how your combos being set up in each game without necessarily overcommitting to it. I think this deck is very interesting, and I would, if y'all have any questions or anything, or just want to talk about the deck, reach out and comment. I'm more than happy to talk about it. I love this deck. I think it's great. I think there's a lot of interesting decisions. And again, all these decisions I made and I'm talking about, I think they're correct for the most part. But I don't want that to be like the guiding force of the deck, and to the point where people will evaluate everything through how I've evaluated things and then not provide any kind of like contrastive opinion. I really like different opinions, and I think there's a lot to learn about this deck and a lot to discuss about this deck. And so, yeah, you know, I'm down to talk and yeah, really, you know, try and build a community around this Nightmare Medallion list and Timeless. I think it's really great and really excited about it. Thank you.